Good morning. So I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Today we have Adam with us, who is a major multiple winning strategic talent acquisition business leader with 20 plus years of experience when it comes to high impact experience and global exposure when it comes to serving a lot of companies to help them grow, find amazing talent. He has created a lot of shareholder and stakeholder value by developing and generating communities that help in making a difference. Let's welcome Adam on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us about his journey, what he has learned along the way, and how we can implement those learnings in our own journey. Hi, Adam. How are you doing?
Hey there, Manal. Lovely to be on the show today. Thank you most kindly for the invite and that rather eloquent introduction. Thank you most
Of
kindly.
course. I was short on words because of the work that you've done. So I'd love to hear about your journey, Adam, what your role is within the company, and where you currently work.
Okay. Well, I've spent the last 22 years, there's a couple of grey hairs here and a couple of grey hairs there, but on the global talent trail, so to speak, working with organizations from startups all the way to multi-billion dollar multinationals across 10, 11 different countries now. So 4 years in China, 4 years in India, 7 years in the Middle East. Last 5 years have been here in the US. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I think that essentially I describe myself in a potted terms as a business guy who wears a talent hat. I'm very fortunate that that talent hat has had some feathers of recognition in it over the years for some of the innovative work that's been done and some of the generative impact that I've been able to help organizations create as far as their talent practice is concerned. I consider talent management to be my field, which combines talent acquisition, learning and development, performance and succession, because I believe that those three things, when you integrate them, create an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is what really allows talent to be to give their all and to receive what they deserve to receive within an organization as well. Um,
Okay.
yeah, my current organization is Behavox. It's a very exciting AI machine learning company that focuses on identifying bad actors inside organizations through data analysis. And it's been a rocket ship ride so far. We've hired hundreds over the last year. We're calming that down just a little bit for the moment as we consolidate and decide what's next from our strategic perspective, what areas we most need to build out. But so far, Behavox has been a marvelous journey so far.
Okay, wow. So you worked in global talent hiring all over the world. So can you tell us about, because I'd love to hear because you have that global exposure. Can you tell us how the pandemic changed the way companies hire, just the hiring trends and everything? Because your experience sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the pandemic has had some more major impact, of course, but I'm actually quite surprised and positively surprised by the way that we've been able to maintain high quality talent activity during a period where everybody has been, well, not everybody, but there's been a large percentage of people in their homes and unable to meet in offices. Fortunately, in my career, I've worked for a number of organizations that were remote first. So I had a very good, strong exposure to that. Companies that were born in their very DNA designed to be remote first. And that really, I think, is something that it's much easier for organizations which is designed that way to do it than it is for organizations who have to learn and adapt. Oh, we've
That
been
is
office
very
culture
true.
and now we're suddenly doing that. Because there are a number of subtle and not so subtle differences in how basically relationships are formed, collaboration occurs, and how generative we can be into the development of our people. So I've seen to be honest, I think that the interviewing and especially on the talent acquisition side, working remotely has allowed for a lot of advantages in some ways. Instead of people having to travel, some people flying across the world for interviews, to be able to host that on Zoom and get a team trained up so they can run structured behavioral interviewing and make it a generative two-way learning experience. We found that we got more time out of that in some ways because the logistics of travel were taken away from that, which I then thought said, no, we don't lose that time. We put it all back into giving feedback. And I think feedback is one of the holy grails from a corporate perspective of any talent acquisition process, being able to give generative feedback on what the candidate did particularly well and what particularly maybe didn't resonate well with us as an organization, because I think that's only fair. So much of it falls into a black box and it's like, did I do well? Did I not do well? And the other big thing is creating a culture inside an organization where this is not a one-way process. If you're looking for the best in talent, every time I pound on my organizations around this, Great talent always has options. Whether their option is to sit on a beach drinking margaritas because they've done that well, or whether it's to work for another organization, or whatever it is, they always have options. And this is a mutual due diligence process. It's a process where data should be gathered from both sides. It's not about putting one person under a spotlight and examining them and poking and prodding like some alien investigation. It should be a generative information sharing so that the candidate can gather as much information to decide if it's right for them, the opportunity and discussion, as well as the company deciding whether they can get the information they need to make the decision whether the person not can do the job, but can be great, can flourish in the job. Anytime you can find someone who can flourish in a position, then that's a great position for them to be in. And that's when you're making hiring offers, because you want to set people up to succeed, not set them up to struggle or fail.
I can definitely see why anyone would love working with you, because I think the wisdom that you have, how you understand that candidates are an asset to the company rather than a liability to the company, and how candidates have so many options these days is something that's so important, because usually companies have these long procedures of hiring interviews where they have to go through 6 to 7 different rounds of interviews, and by the end of those the candidate has another offer, or they might just lose interest. So I think you understanding that and making sure the company that you work with works around that is something that's so important. So I'm super impressed. So thank you for sharing that, Adam. It's definitely very amazing. So Adam, my next question for you would be that a lot of companies these days usually put out these job descriptions that require these hundreds of skills. So according to you, for example, for the company that you currently work with, what are some of the core skills that you would require from your candidates that you think would make them a good fit for your company?
All right. Well, to begin with, I think there's a conceptual flaw in not what you've just said, I think, which is very right, but in what the majority of companies do, which is basically sharing a job description. Job descriptions are not designed for being a talent marketing piece of collateral. They're designed for trying to identify what are the roles and responsibilities of someone within a job, and should be used for internal HR practices typically. What my company does, for example, because I brought it to them, is we never use job descriptions as our adverts or our postings. We use something called job postings. A job posting is the prioritized. What are the 5 things prioritized that we hope you could bring to our organization? What are the 5 things prioritized that are your technical competencies, areas that will allow you to shine and succeed in our organization? And what are the 5 things that are the values of our organization and how we bring them to life that we'd look for you to be aligned with? Because if you're not aligned with those, then essentially you might be able to do the what, but you're not going to be able to do it in the how that we do it as an organization and a talent community ourselves. So I think, first of all, organizations, if you're still using job descriptions as your job post, it's anachronistic. Anyway, move past that, please.
I love the forward thinking approach that you're taking, because I think the companies are looking for unicorns these days. And it's just interesting because a candidate will not have 100% of the match that you're looking for. So a lot of candidates, I think, even lose motivation that they're like, okay, I don't think I'll get the job because I don't match 100% of the criteria. And a lot of companies end up losing on really good talent just because the job description is designed in such a way where it won't attract the right talent. So thank you for sharing that. My last question for you, Adam, would be you mentioned that your company hired a lot of people in the previous year and it's taking a pause, but what are some of the roles that are currently open that you're looking to hire on? And if you have any tips for job seekers out there, what would it be?
All right. Well, we're particularly excited at the moment because we have a fairly large group of QA engineers that we're trying to bring into the organization. These need to be fairly experienced, although I hate it when a job description says must have 5 years of experience, because 2 years of ideal experience is worth 5 years of non-optimized, or 8 years of non-optimized experience. So just qualifying in years is just, again, an anachronism which our industry hangs on to. It does help provide some guidelines, but anyway, we look for fairly senior. We're looking what we call BCL3, which is an intermediate individual contributor, typically around 5 to 8 years of experience, and has really got some just great stories which show how their passion has been captured and how that passion has translated into business results. So if there's anyone out there listening who's a great QA engineer who's looking for an innovative machine learning, artificial intelligence organization who's working with deep sets of data and helping organizations, our client organizations, really weed out and select bad actors and help identify where generative practices are occurring, then please apply away, apply away. And my recommendation for anyone doing applications really is to a lot of, especially in our organization now, and more so because it's got a very high correlation coefficient to on-the-job performance, is the use of structural behavioral interviewing. So essentially, it's basically saying, okay, can you give us a concrete example of a time when, and then really just identifying what the core competency is or the technical competency and looking for an example of that. So really thinking through what are the technical competencies for this role and what's the best example I've got of that. And it sounds anachronistic again, but you're just using a simple star structure: situation, task, activity, results. It gives a nice framing for the story you're giving, preparing those stories which really just show how your passion was captured and translated into business results. You prepare a couple of those, add in nice data points. For a company like ours, we're all about data, so you've got to have some data points in there, which really, so like saying we improved it a lot. I'm sorry, that's going to fall a little on deaf ears. We improved by this amount from X to Y, and that had this impact. Ooh, okay, now we're getting excited. So for our company in specific, data is very important, but it's really about constructing those stories that show yourself off in the greatest of lights. Because we're not out there to look for failure. We're out there to look for success. We want to hear the greatest stories possible. And so having those prepared and thought through and on the tip of your tongue as possible. We know it's not easy in any interview process. It's a pressured scenario, and we take that into account as well. But having those as ready as you can and having those a little bit rehearsed and data rich, I'd say is a great recommendation for anyone who was applying for an organization like mine, which is very data oriented.
Okay. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much from you in these few minutes. I can't even tell you. And I can definitely see why you are considered a professional when it comes to talent acquisition, because you understand how the hiring processes these days are outdated, how important it is for candidates to feel like they belong to an organization, and how you actually assess candidates based on their behavior and how you make sure that they deploy that STAR technique, because I think it helps you understand how the candidate contributes to the company, how the actions that they took, and why they would be an asset to your company. So thank you so much for coming on this show. It was definitely one of the funnest interviews that I've had, and that's saying a lot because I've interviewed over 300 plus people in the last 2 months. But thank you so much. It was an
Feelings
absolute pleasure.
reciprocated. Thank you most kindly for your time today, and the best of wishes to all of those people listening. You can find that great role. You can find that fit where you flourish as soil in which you can really become all you want to be. It's going to take some searching. It's going to take some positivity. It's going to take some perseverance. But please keep being perseverant. Keep that professionalism alive, and you will succeed.